A new layer in the politically charged debate over the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol and just how people are held accountable. Prosecutors are now reportedly seeking to take back funds that dozens of defendants raised for their own legal expenses on a crowdfunding site called Give, Send, Go. The DOJ questioning where the money is going because many defendants had government-funded attorneys. The Associated Press reports that prosecutors have sought more than $390,000 in fines against at least 21 January 6 defendants so far this year, with donations ranging between $450 to more than $71,000. I know there are a lot of numbers in this story, but judges now seeking fines of at least 33 defendants this year, totaling six figures, $124,000. Joining me right now to talk about this is Cal Thomas, longtime syndicated columnist, journalist, and author. He has written the book, A Watchman in the Night, What I've Seen Over 50 Years Reporting on America. Good morning, Cal. First of all,
good morning, Adrienne.
We talk about these topics. You are very bold in your beliefs. It's no secret where you stand on some of these things. But is the DOJ being unfair?
Well, I think we need to look into more details of this. I'm concerned about the precedent. The Miranda rights give us a right to an attorney. Now, if the attorney is provided by the government, that's one thing. And if money is still being raised under the rubric of I need to pay for my attorneys, that's another thing. But if the government is trying to doubly punish those who have been convicted or those who have been accused and have not yet received trial from what is their constitutional right and their Miranda right to be properly represented, then that's another issue. The government has unending amounts of money to spend, and when they accuse someone of a crime, the individual who has been accused has to pay out of his or her own pocket. So there's a disadvantage and an inequality right there. But if the money is being used for other purposes, then I think, the government may have a right to intervene in this case. But as we've seen with those 87,000 IRS agents who have not been reduced in this debt ceiling deal, the government goes on and on and on and spends unending amount of cash where the rest of us have to pony up or suffer the consequences of inflation.
Yeah, this was a deadly attack on the U.S. Capitol. Granted, it is hollowed ground, but some I've talked to have said they're upset because they feel there's a double standard, that those who participated in the events of January 6th are being treated more harshly than, say, those who have protested in other cities across the country for different political reasons. What do you say to that?
Well, I don't think there's any question about it. A friend of mine says if the left didn't have double standards, they'd have no standards at all. It's a good line. It's probably true. Yeah, if you look at all those riots a couple of summers ago in Portland, Oregon, and other cities, the Black Lives Matter business, which we now find out a lot of the money raised on that was fraudulently raised and fraudulently spent on mansions and personal benefits, clothes, food, travel, all kinds of other things. The Hunter Biden laptop, that thing has not been resolved yet. There really does seem to be a double standard, and that's what concerns a lot of Americans. And that was behind, I believe, a lot of the anger on January 6th. It does not justify violence. It does not justify harm to people. It doesn't justify breaking the laws to enter the Capitol and causing damage, but it is an explanation of what's going on. And I think Washington politicians need to pay more attention to the anger in this country about their dysfunctional government. There are people who obey the law, who serve in the military, who had people, as we remember on this Memorial Day, relatives die in battle and service to their country, and they look at everything that's going on about the misspending and the woke business with Target and now Kohl's selling baby gear that says transgenders are here to stay, and they say, is this what we fought a war for? Many wars? Is this why our relatives died for this sort of thing? So I think there's a lot of concern and anger out there, some of it justified. Violence is never justified, but I wish the politicians would pay more attention to those concerns.
And if there is accountability and they are invested in equity, then it should be across the board and not for a particular side. Thank you,
Cal.
The
letters that spell out diversity, inclusion, and equity are DIE. And if we continue down the road we've been going from overspending, overtaxing, overregulating, all of these things that Donald Trump, to his credit, tried to reverse during his 4 years in office, then we're going to be in even more serious trouble than we're in right now, because a constitutional republic is not the natural state of humanity. If it were, there would be more people embracing those ways of government. So as Ronald Reagan said, we're only one generation away from losing it all, and we need to reestablish those values that our parents and grandparents so beautifully defended for so many years in wars and in other venues.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.